Well, hello, everyone. Nicole Coustier here with Aurelian Coaching, and welcome to the fourth webinar. You made it. You made it. It's the fourth webinar in the series for the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning that I created for people who have set goals in the past and perhaps haven't always met them. I have researched many different planning and execution systems over the years. This is one that I developed that addresses the four gaps that I saw in other planning systems to ensure that people are able to actually push through and meet all of their goals. So if that's you, welcome. Welcome. So I'm going to give a quick recap of the first three webinars. It's just going to take a couple minutes, and then we are going to get into step 4. And if you hang out until the end of the webinar, I have a special gift for you for all the people who registered and who have been participating in these webinars. So the first webinar was about setting a purpose. This is the first step of the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning. You've got to set a purpose. You've got to think about your desired outcome. What is the desired condition of your work life, of your home life? I even have a client who applied the D.A.R.T method to dating. They applied it to their dating life, to great success, by the way. But you have to think about where you want to end up, okay? And the whole point of that is that you don't want to create a bunch of goals that are not anchored in a purpose, anchored in some sort of vision of where you want to end up. They ultimately need to support something. So you need to be able to define that and articulate that, okay? So that's item number 1, is what is your desired outcome? What are you trying to accomplish? Keep that top of mind. The second step of the D.A.R.T method, and this was the second webinar, was the actual acronym D.A.R.T. So this is the part where you are crystallizing all of your goals, and it involves D, decision. You know, what decisions are you making to get you closer to that desired outcome? A, it stands for accountability. So a lot of times if you are setting goals for yourself, great, you are going to be the person in the A line. But if you are leading teams, leading organizations, you might be making decisions for the organization's greater purpose to achieve a particular desired condition of the organization. So you may be putting other people's names in the A line, but remember, it has to be a name or a role. You just can't put, you know, the marketing team or something like that in the A line. It needs to be a specific person. And then R stands for rationale. So this is a big gap that I've seen in other planning systems. And this is being able to articulate why making the decision that you're making actually gets you closer. Articulate exactly how or why this thing, doing this thing or not doing another thing, is going to get you closer to achieving your purpose and to fulfilling your purpose. It's very important to be able to articulate that. And what I found in teams is that people are not on the same page about that, right? So if you have parenting goals and you have, you know, a decision that you'd like to make and you believe that it gets you closer to your parenting goals in a specific way, maybe you ought to talk to the other parent. Make sure you guys are on the same page about the rationale and those decisions. So this is such a beautiful way of opening channels of communication and making sure that you can alleviate any hiccups or completely eliminate any hiccups that might show up later. Okay, and then the final letter is T for timeline, right? So when are you going to do it? And this is really important because when I walk clients through timeline, they always set something in the future. And I always ask, well, what's preventing you from doing it right now? Just do it now, right? And so kind of work through what all the assumptions might be about why you're not doing it right away. Okay, so this is a very good method for actually articulating all of those important things that get missed in other planning systems. Okay, now the third webinar, this was last week, has to do with step 3 of the D.A.R.T method, and that is the why nots, what I call the why nots. What are all the things holding you back from actually executing on your decisions? And if you want to go back and rewatch that webinar, you have the replay if you're registered. And I will also put all of these webinars on my YouTube channel, so you have access to all of them. They'll be in the planning series. There's going to be a playlist on YouTube for that, which will be available beginning tomorrow. So you can go back and watch it, because that third webinar, last week's webinar, was really good at parsing out what is potentially going to hold you back from executing on all those decisions that you made that will support your purpose. And this had to do with, sometimes there are external factors involved, and sometimes there are internal factors. Internal meaning internal to you, right? Mindset related stuff a lot of times, emotional, things that are holding you back. So it's important to surface those things. And we reviewed a why not matrix, where we talked about how do you deal with something that is an external factor, and you're willing to accept it, right? You kind of accept that that's kind of the way it goes. Maybe you can do some workarounds or find some compromises to make that a little bit of a better situation for you. But if it's an external factor holding you back and you are unwilling to accept it, well, now you create a boundary, right? You create a boundary to protect yourself so that you are not prevented from executing on your goals and meeting your goals. And we talked a lot about what it means to set a boundary. It's very good stuff. So you'll want to rewatch that or watch it for the first time if you haven't already. And then the internal stuff, right? So what happens if it's an internal block and you're willing to accept it, you kind of accept that about yourself. Well, if that's the case, then you have to accept the consequences of that, right? If you are willing to accept some of the internal limitations that are holding you back from executing on your goals, well, then you have to accept the consequences of that and what the situation ends up being. But if there are internal things that are holding you back, internal why nots, and you are unwilling to accept those, and you want to resolve those why nots, then that's a lot of time where coaching comes into play. How do you surface why those are an issue for you? How do you resolve those why nots? How do you get those out of the way and adjust your mindset and adjust your emotional management so that you can follow through and that no longer is something that's holding you back? Okay, so that is the third step of the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning, is surfacing and resolving all of your why nots. Now we're at the fourth step, which is, well, now you got to go do it. You got to go do it. So how do you do it? This is a very interesting technique that I learned from a couple of different coaches and mentors who I thought, when I looked at them, they were the most productive people that I had ever met. And ironically, as productive as they were, they didn't seem like they worked, 80-hour weeks. They went home to be with their families. They went on vacation. They got enough sleep. And yet they were incredibly productive. Now, those people had all of these other things lined up really well. They knew what they were gunning for. That was always an anchor for them, right? They made decisions, but they knew the rationale for why those decisions are actually getting them closer. That was the lens through which they were evaluating all of their behavior, right? And they had coaches. They had business coaches. They had personal coaches, because they knew that emotional management and their mindset was something that could potentially hold them back, but they didn't want it to. They didn't want to be that person who just accepts the limitations of their own thinking. No, they wanted to break those things down. So they had all of these other things. But in terms of execution, this is what they did differently than other people. You ready? They used calendars. Lots of people use calendars. There are some people who don't. It's a mystery to me. My husband doesn't use a calendar. He's a very accomplished person and doesn't use a calendar. That's not me. I need to use a calendar. And using a calendar is part of my system here. But the way they use the calendar is they never, these very accomplished people, these very productive people, they never calendar activity. They only ever calendar what I call their wins. Prospectively, they calendar their wins. See, a lot of times what people do, and this is what I did for years because I didn't know a different way, is I would calendar activity. I'm going to have a call at this hour, and I'm going to have a meeting at that hour, and I'm going to work on this other thing at that hour. And then I would look back on the week, or even just back on the day, and kind of feel, did I accomplish anything? I don't know. Like, did I have the call? Yeah. Did I have the meeting? Yes. Did I work on this thing? Yeah. But I didn't necessarily feel like I had anything to show for it. And so workday after workday after workday, I was consumed by activity because that's what I was calendaring. I was calendaring activity. I was doing stuff, definitely doing stuff. But accomplishments, completing something, getting outcomes and results was something that happened occasionally, right? So what I felt like is during the week, I would work and work and I would have a lot of activity. And then at some point, it would result in an accomplishment. And I just took for granted that this is the way it works. And this is how it is. Here's the thing. For very accomplished, very productive people, they don't assume that. They don't assume that you do a bunch of activity and then at some point you achieve an outcome. Their approach is they calendar their outcomes. They calendar the things they are going to get. They calendar the decisions that they're going to make. They calendar the things that they are completing, which, when this occurred to me many years ago, was mind-blowing and scary. It was scary because my initial reaction was, well, how can you tell, how can you know for sure that you're going to complete the thing, right? And for these very accomplished people, what they said is you decide ahead of time that you're going to complete it. You decide ahead of time that you're going to do it. You decide that when you put it in your calendar, that half hour, you are going to accomplish something in that half hour. You just decide ahead of time, you commit. So I tried it, and my work hours actually came down. And I was in leadership. I was leading multiple departments at a small consulting firm. And you know what? I was wrapping up work at 4:30 and going home to be with my family, because I decided ahead of time when I managed my calendar what I was going to walk away with that day. That day, decisions were going to be made. Things were going to be completed, and the team was going to accomplish things. We're going to have something to show for our work, not just activity, not just busy work, but we will have something to show for it. This was the shift. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. I want you, as part of the fourth step in the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning, is to go through your calendar and shift the language, shift your mindset in how you're using your time. For any particular meeting that you might have with someone, anchor it in, why are we having this meeting, right? What is the rationale for us meeting, and how does it get us closer to what we're trying to accomplish? Make sure you know why you're spending that time on something, and not just because somebody put something in your calendar and you accepted. Now it's on your calendar, and a lot of times it defaults to an hour. It's a long time, you know. So think about, do you know why you are in that meeting? And if you know why, well, then what will you accomplish with that other person? What are you going to do differently to make sure that you have something to show for that hour that you spent with somebody? And sometimes this warrants a conversation with the people that you're meeting with, right? And it may not be super easy. Yeah, you may need to do hard things here, right? And have a conversation with somebody along the lines of, tell me what decision we're going to make at this meeting. Well, the other person might say, well, we're supposed to talk about this initiative. And you have to push back and say, I know we're going to talk about it, but then at the end of this hour, is there a decision that needs to be made, right? Tell me what we are going to do. What are we going to have to show for this? And sometimes people might not know. People might not know, but asking the question, it's a very good question to ask, right? Asking the question prompts people to be more thoughtful about their time and their effort. And as a leader, you can define those things, right? I had people who were mid-level managers or managers for the first time, pushing back on their leaders, saying, help me understand, what is the purpose of this? What are we deciding? Just so I'm better prepared, right? What are we going to be completing at the end of this half hour, right? There are people who just demonstrate leadership all the time. It's just a part of who they are. And you can be that person too. You don't need a title, or you don't need to be leading all these teams in order to ask the question, how are we spending our time? Help me understand the rationale. Or go ahead and put out there what you believe it to be and just ask for clarification, right? It's my understanding that we're meeting in order to make a decision on X, right? And it's, yes, you can move the ball downfield. You can, not everything has to be a major decision, right? But there still needs to be some sort of outcome. There still needs to be some sort of interim decision or interim completion, interim accomplishment coming out of that meeting. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point? So even as a leader, to be able to say, this is my understanding of what we're trying to do with this call, with this meeting, with this time. Are we on the same page about that? Right? It's so powerful to be able to calendar your wins. This is what I'm talking about. Calendar your wins. Decisions, outcomes, results. What will you have to show for it? Okay, so that's number one. So I want you to go through your calendar, and if you already have meetings, if you already have calls, right? See if you can adjust those and think about what is the outcome or the result that I want to have coming out of that time, or even going forward. Before you accept another meeting invitation, right, make sure you understand what is the point of this. Get on the same page with the other person. You can do this, especially do it with your own time. When you set time aside to do research, what does that even mean? Sometimes people block out, 2 hours to do research or to work on something. Define what are you, when those 2 hours are over, are you going to have read through 20 journal articles? Are you going to have completed an outline? Are you going to have what? Completed a draft and sent it off? You have to define that for yourself. Now, this is the scary part, right? Because a lot of people say, well, I don't want to do that because what if I don't? What if I can't? What if? Well, that's discovery, isn't it? You have to know. How will I know how long it will take me to complete my draft? Well, put it in there, put it in there and let's see. Right? What is happening in those 2 hours that you have set aside to work on something or to complete your draft? If you're going to complete your draft and those 2 hours pass and the draft is not completed, well, guess what? You have more information than you did last time. When you go into your calendar to set the next schedule, when you're calendaring your wins, well, now do you know how long it takes to complete a draft? Next time, 2 hours is you finish half your draft, right? So you are going to be doing a lot of learning about your own productivity. And this shines a light on how you use your time, how long it takes to get through things. But when you're just arbitrarily saying you're going to work on something, but there's a looming deadline at some point in the future, right? Decide ahead of time what you're going to accomplish, and then you start to collect some very useful data points that you can then adjust. Which takes me to the second point of calendaring your wins. The way I do this, and a lot of my clients do, is we calendar wins on a weekly basis. So some people use a method called Monday Hour One, where it is first thing you do Monday is you look at the week, you calendar your wins. That's when you do the planning. I do it on Sunday, right? So I set time aside and I block out my calendar for all the personal things first. So if I have family related things, I just block off the calendar for that. And then I calendar my wins as it relates to work and other things, right? What are the decisions? What are the things that I'm going to complete in the allotted time? And that's something that I do on Sunday. And it actually doesn't take a whole lot of time. It takes, well, I'm practiced at it enough now where it takes about 10 minutes, because if you've done all this other stuff, what you're spending your time on and how you're calendaring is crystal clear. It's crystal clear. This is all the stuff that you use as your anchor and the lens through which you're evaluating how you spend your time and what you do, right? So all of this is your anchor for the calendaring work. So the calendaring work can actually go pretty quickly. And so that happens on Sunday for me. Some people do it on Monday, but reserve the time to do that, right? So the calendar actually says, spend 15 minutes calendaring your wins. I will have calendared all my accomplishments in that amount of time. It's beautiful, right? And then what I do is at some point midweek, I review. So I do this on a Wednesday when I look at my calendar and things shift, other things happen. If there's a reason I didn't get to something, Wednesday is the time to reevaluate what was happening there. If I didn't accomplish something that I set my calendar to, then I go back to step 3, my why nots. What was it there that prevented me from getting the result that on Sunday was so clear that I would get? Why didn't I get it? Was it an external issue or an internal issue? Was it something I was willing to accept or something that I was unwilling to accept? And if I was unwilling to accept it, why didn't I set a boundary or why didn't I get coached through it? Right? Midweek is a really good time to evaluate what are the bumps in the road for me and how can I resolve those? Because you already have all the tools that you need to get roadblocks out of your way, but you have to use those tools. A lot of people, they just blindly go through the week, and I guess it's fine if they don't accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. But if you're part of this webinar, and if you do want to be one of the most productive and balanced people between work, school, kids, friends, family, whatever it is, if you want to have time to do all the things, then you have to be able to stop and critically evaluate what the heck is going on that I'm not focused, that I'm getting distracted. Are you making other people's priorities your priorities? Right? Somebody needs me. It's my job to say yes and help them and ignore all this stuff that I've created for myself. Is that what's happening? You have to be able to surface these things, right? And you have to make a proactive decision about whether you're willing or unwilling to accept those circumstances. Because if you're willing to accept it, then perhaps you ought to revisit some of this stuff, right? Which is fine, But just recognize that that's what's going on. This D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning is set up for you to be successful all the time, not just some of the time, right? All the time, which means you have to look at what's happening. And if you need to make adjustments, that's fine. Make adjustments so that you are successful. Be honest with yourself, right? Or use this to make adjustments in how you're responding to incoming stimuli, to all the external factors. Use this as your anchor, your foundation. Use it as the lens through which you are determining how you're going to respond to all of those external factors. Sometimes it's a matter of saying no. Sometimes it's a matter of a workaround or a compromise. Sometimes it's a matter of not yet. Yes, but not yet. All of those things may come into play, but only if you're calendaring your wins and then reviewing midway to see what are the why nots holding me back. So that's the way I do it. I plan on Sunday, I calendar all my wins, and then on Wednesday, I celebrate, because if Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I've already accomplished quite a bit, I want to recognize that. That's good, right? That's really good. But if there are other things that I haven't accomplished, to really ask myself, what the heck is going on? Am I allowing external things to distract me? What do I want to do about that? Or are all of these other things true priorities, right? And the decisions that I had made up here need to be reevaluated and focused on what the priorities really are for me. That's fine. But for the rest of the week, this adjustment that I need to make on the Wednesday is going to allow me to be extremely successful Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? It's all about execution. All about execution, okay? So planning, number one, your desired outcome. Number two, the decisions you're going to make and the rationale behind those decisions. Execution is what's going to hold you back. Go ahead and surface those things and resolve them in advance, and then calendar your wins. That's the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning. Now, for all of those who've registered, I hope you've gotten a lot of really great information from all of this. Comments are positive. I'm glad this is useful. Yes, so one question, you want to calendar the time to do this. Yeah, you got a calendar time. And this doesn't take hours. Okay, it takes some time to explain it, but once you're actually doing it, you're going to go through a period of discovery, right? So you're going to calendar some time, you're going to do the thing, and then you'll realize, oh, it takes me a little bit longer, it takes me a little bit less time. That's fine. You make the adjustments. Beautiful. And also, usually it's my clients, by the third time they go through this, then it becomes second nature. So you may just need to go through it a few times. Don't get super frustrated the first time. You're going to learn a lot the first couple of times you go through it. And then the third time should be pretty straightforward. Okay. So what I am doing for all of the registrants, thank you for participating. Thank you for listening in. I have a Black Friday special. So what I'm going to be doing the day after Thanksgiving is sending all of you the ebook on the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning. So you'll get that via email. And not only will it have all the explanations of all the steps, some people like audio, some people like video, some people just like to read. So the ebook is the way that for my readers, I will have available to you that will go through everything that I've reviewed on these webinars. But the ebook also has two additional things. One is it has tons of examples. These are examples from my own life. These are examples from my clients. These are examples from both business and personal. So I think I mentioned at the very beginning that I had somebody, a client, in my life coaching practice who applied the D.A.R.T method of deliberate planning to her dating life, which is just, it was so fun and hilarious and validating because it completely worked for her. So there are lots of people who've used this in lots of different ways. So the ebook will have tons of examples to solidify that for you, make it very tangible. The other thing that the ebook will have are worksheets. Worksheets, glorious worksheets. And each of these is just one page. Each of these steps is just one page, but you can print it out as many times as you like. And what happens over time is once you get really practiced at this, you don't need the worksheets anymore, right? You can do it in your head, or you're just popping up your calendar. And once you know your purpose and you've gone through the D.A.R.T method, the acronym, and you have all your decisions, you know exactly why you're doing a thing. All you need to do is go to the calendar and just populate those decisions, populate those outcomes in your calendar. It's really straightforward. It's really straightforward. It's a very different way of approaching planning and execution compared to some of the other systems that are out there. So that is a free gift to you guys for participating. And all of these videos will be, you have links to the replay, but all of them will be on my YouTube channel as well. So I'll make sure that all of these are going to be in a playlist, the planning and execution playlist on my YouTube channel. Okay, guys, I have enjoyed so much teaching you about the D.A.R.T method for deliberate planning, and use it. And then if you have questions, if you come across some stumbling blocks or experience some confusion, let's talk. Go ahead and go to aureliancoaching.com, schedule a consult, populate something in my calendar, and I will know exactly what we're there to accomplish in that time. I would love to talk to you and help you through this method. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Take care.